Shalom, everybody, and welcome to a Word of Covenant, a Hebrew Scriptures radio teaching. I'm your host, Paul Onyemechi Onovo, and this is also a radio teaching project with Addy Talk Radio, www.adietalkradio.com. You can tune in and join us. Today we shall be talking about the second part of our teaching series on tithing, Tithes, Tithers, and Testimonies, Book 3. Let us pray. Yahawashi said, "And he that sent me is with me. The Father hath not left me alone, for I do always those things that please him." Father in heaven, cause us to do all those things that please you, so that we shall remain faithful in the everlasting covenant, in the name and the blood of Yahawashi, Jesus Christ our Redeemer. Amen. Brothers, let's begin. Our study on tithing a week ago generated quite fascinating and insightful reactions from the brethren across the world. Thank you. I appreciate all of you and hope to read your reactions on today's study also. Do you have questions on tithing? Please ask. Let us start with the exploration of Book 2, where we deal with all types of tithing laws in the patriarchal period, in the Tanakh, that is the Old Testament, and in the Brit Hadasha, the New Testament. Point number one, in the patriarchal era, we understood in the previous study that the patriarchs Abraham and Jacob tithed unto YAHAWAH and taught their children to do so. Scriptural and related witnesses. First one is that Abraham did tithe to Melchizedek, which we read in Genesis chapter 14 from verse 18 to 20. The key understanding there is that Abraham gave a tenth of all that he had, the increase he had after the war, to Melchizedek, priest of El Elyon, the Most High Yah. And the Apostle Paul, in his writing with Lucius, as we read in history, in Hebrews chapter 7 from verse 1 to 10, said that Levi, the son of Jacob, paid tithes through Abraham when Abraham paid these tithes to Melchizedek, showing the tithe principle functioning before Sinai. Also, Jacob, through whom Lawi, his son, direct son, came, tithe vowed to Abba YAHAWAH in Genesis chapter 28 from 20 to 22, and said, "Of all that you give me, I will surely give you a tenth." Okay, so this is a vow he made. Now, the book of Jubilees is also very important for our Natzrim teaching methodology that shows the expansion of Abraham's tithe to Melchizedek as an ordinance forever for the generations. This you can read up in Jubilees chapter 13. Jacob tithed all that came with him, and Levi, Lawi, is set apart as priest in Jubilees chapter 32. Make time and go online and read the whole story. I mentioned it in last teaching, how he had a dream that he was ordained a priest. So his father and the whole entire household gave tithes to him. So to the question or questions on tithe regarding who paid to whom, how and frequency of the tithing in the patriarchal era, we respond as follows. The patriarchs, Abraham and Jacob, and his household gave tithes to the priestly figure Melchizedek, that is in the case of Abraham, okay, and then Jacob gave to YAHAWAH by the priestly line, that is his own son, Levi, okay. So Abraham voluntarily gave tithes of spoils, produce, livestock, often linked to vows and covenant gratitude to Melchizedek, okay. So the frequency of tithing in this case, it was not yet codified as a law in the days of Abraham and Jacob. Okay? So on the one hand, Abraham's tithe was tied to a major deliverance and increase in the war against the 5 kings, as we have read in Genesis chapter 14. Jacob, on the other hand, fulfilled his vow to YAHAWAH, Elohim, when he was in distress. As we have seen, he did eventually fulfill it through his son, whom the Almighty ordained a priest in a dream, and the whole household of Jacob tithed to the Almighty through the office of Levi, Lawi. In the Tanakh, here we go through the laws of tithes, who should tithe, how frequently, and to whom. Okay, so let's face the law of tithing in the Torah and answer the questions about who pays tithes to whom and how frequently this law has to be fulfilled. Here are the core tithe texts we shall be dealing with. The first one is Leviticus 27 from verse 30 to 32. We call this the first tithe because there are three distinct tithes in the Holy Scriptures. Three of them. So the Levitical tithe is what we call the first tithe. Okay? And in Leviticus 27 from 30 to 32, we read, "And all the tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the trees, is yours. It is holy unto Yahawah. And if a man will at all redeem aught of his tithes, he shall add thereto the fifth part thereof. And concerning the tithe of the herd or of the flock, even whatsoever passeth under the rod, the 10th shall be holy unto Yahawah." These are things most of us know already, okay? So you don't remove anything from your tithe. All the tithe of the land belongs to Yah. It is holy to Yahawah. Hear that and understand it, and don't be deceived by people. It belongs to the Almighty. And for his own purposes, he gave this to the tribe of Levi because they have no inheritance. So apparently, there is no redemption of anything regarding the tithe of the land, fruits, flocks, and herds. So you have to give it to the Almighty through the Levites who serve him. Okay, so tithes are given to the Levites as their inheritance, as we read in Numbers chapter 18 from verse 21 to 24. Very important. "And behold, I have given the children of Levi all the 10th in Israel for an inheritance, their own inheritance, for their service which they serve, even the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. Neither must the children of Israel henceforth come nigh the tabernacle of the congregation, lest they bear sin and die." Okay, so the Levites are the ones that will serve and officiate in the tabernacle. "But the Levites shall do the service of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they shall bear their iniquity. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations, that among the children of Israel they have no inheritance." Hear that. "But the tithes of the children of Israel, which they offer as an eve offering unto Yahawah, I have given to the Levites to inherit. Therefore I have said unto them, among the children of Israel they shall have no inheritance." Their inheritance comes from the Almighty through the people of Israel. Yasharallah gives their tithes to the Levites as a command. The Levites in turn are commanded to tithe their tithe and give to the priests, the children of Aaron, the high priest. And we read this in Numbers chapter 18 from verse 26 to 28. "Thus speak unto the Levites and say unto them, when ye take of the children of Israel the tithes which I have given you from them for your inheritance, then ye shall offer up an eve offering of it for Yah, even a 10th part of the tithe. And this your heave offering shall be reckoned unto you as though it were the corn of the threshing floor, and as the fullness of the winepress. Thus ye also shall offer an offering, a heave offering unto Yahawah of all your tithes, which ye receive of the children of Israel, and ye shall give thereof Yahawah's heave offering to Aaron, to the priest Aaron." Okay? So everybody has to present a gift to the Almighty. Deuteronomy 16:16 to 17. Yah says nobody should come to him empty-handed. Whenever you're going to the place of the Almighty, particularly during the feast, the Sabbath day, Passover, Pentecost, the rest of the feasts in the year. That's the reason why the Levites, although they don't have any inheritance, they don't make money and wealth, they depended on the Almighty. And this is according to the promise of the blessings of Father Jacob. chapter 48 to 50 of the book of Genesis. You can read that up there. Now, the high priest and his family are the ones on record who did not give tithes, as far as I can see. So if you read the Bible and you find anything that I'm misquoting, please let me know so I can correct myself. But so far, I'm kind of pretty sure the high priest doesn't offer any more tithes. He is there to officiate and give all these things back to the Almighty, and then lift his hands and bless the congregation of Israel. The second tithe, this one is done at the time of the festivals of the Almighty. So if you go to Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 5 to 7, please note these things and read them. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 11 and 17, and Deuteronomy chapter 14, from verse 22 to 27. The Israelites bring a tithe of grains, that is, every type of grain they plant, okay? Of wine, that is why we will always celebrate the feast of the new wine in the coming few weeks, July 19th. That's why we celebrate the new wine festival. And then 50 days after, we celebrate the new oil, and then the rest of the feast of the year. So the Almighty is saying to the people of Israel, bring a tithe of grain, wine, oil, and herds to the chosen place, that is the place where the temple would be, or where the tabernacle would be, as in the case of Eli and his family, and when Hannah and her husband all went there to sacrifice, okay? So they can eat this before Yahawah in joy. If they live far, they may convert whatever they have to money and spend it there in worship. Okay? So let's look at the law. But unto the place which Yahawah your Elohim shall choose out of all tribes to put his name there, even unto his habitation shall he seek, and thither thou shalt come, and thither ye shall bring your burnt offerings and your sacrifices and your tithes and heave offerings of your hand and your vows and your freewill offerings and the firstlings of your herds and of your flocks, and there ye shall eat before Yahawah your Elohim, and ye shall rejoice in all that ye put your hand unto, ye and your household, wherein Yahawah your Elohim hath blessed thee. Okay, so this is very important so that you don't forget it. That is the second tithe during the feast times of the Almighty. Okay, then in Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 11, it says here, then there shall be a place which Yahawah your Elohim shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. Thither shall ye bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings and your sacrifices, your tithes, and the heave offerings of your land, of your hand, and all your choice vows which ye vow unto Yahawah. End quote. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 17 says, thou mayest not eat within thy gates the tithe of thy corn, or of thy wine, or of thy oil, or the firstlings of the herds, or of thy flock, nor any of the vows which thou vowest, nor thy freewill offerings, or heave offering of thy hand. You do this during the second Passover at the feast. And actually, you're supposed to also share with the Levites and the poor and everybody. But there is a third tithe, which we shall look into now. The third tithe, or the triennial tithe, that is the poor people's tithe. That's what it's called. And this is documented in Deuteronomy chapter 14 from verse 28 to 29. The Most High says every third year a tithe is stored in towns for the Levites, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. Now, why are strangers included? Because they are also the children of the Most High. They are immigrants in your country. So when you do the third tithe, called popularly the poor people's tithe, you take all these things and give to them. At the end of every 3 years, thou shalt bring forth all the tithe of thine increase, the same year, and shalt lay it up within thy gates. And the Levites, because he hath no part nor inheritance with thee, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow, which are within thy gates, shall come and shall eat and be satisfied, that Yahawah thy Elohim may bless thee in all the work of thine hand which thou doest. Okay? So this is how it is done. First tithe, second tithe, third tithe. Okay? So the people of Israel were required to do this. But guess what? They didn't do exactly this. They did it sporadically and then stopped. And then they broke all the commandments of the Almighty and were chased out. First group, the northern kingdom, went into exile and they were scattered by the Assyrian king. Okay, they never returned back fully. Now, the tribe of Judah that remained continued to sin against the Almighty, and the Almighty scattered them, took them into exile in the land of Babylon for 70 years. When they came back, Nehemiah swore with the group of priests there that they will restore everything that the Almighty commanded, his ordinances, his statutes, his laws, his rulings, and everything. So, in Nehemiah chapter 10, I'd like you to read the whole so that you will get the gist, the real truth there. Okay? These people just came back from exile, and Nehemiah began to work hard to rebuild the temple. And most of you know that the temple, the second temple after that exile, took them 52 days. 52 days, not months, not years, 52 days to rebuild. And as they were completing, they took vows. They swore before the Almighty. Read Nehemiah chapter 10. He did a great job to bring the people back to the Almighty, where they swore that they will faithfully observe the commandments of the Almighty. So there was this enforcement of the tithes after that exile. So storehouses were built and kept for the tithes, because it's a huge thing from the whole people of Israel. So the Levites and the priests organized to receive them. Okay? So that is in Nehemiah chapter 10. Read from 37 to 39. That's where the details are. And Nehemiah chapter 12 verse 44. In fact, read the whole book of Nehemiah. It's not big. Okay? Read it and understand these things. Okay? Now, when the people of Israel continue to be disobedient, the prophets will be sent to them to rebuke them. Let's look at prophetic rebuke concerning these tithes, that the people refuse to pay. So we read, whenever Yashrael, Israel, transgresses, Abba YAHAWAH sends his prophets to warn them. In Amos chapter 4 from verse 4 to verse 5, we hear him ironically mentioning tithes at Bethel. And this is the quotation. Come to Bethel and transgress. At Gilgal, multiply transgression and bring your sacrifices every morning and your tithes after 3 years. That is the poor people's tithe, remember? And offer a sacrifice of thanksgiving with leaven and proclaim and publish the free offerings. For this liketh you, O ye children of Israel, saith Yahawah Elohim, your God. Now, this sounds like he's mocking them. Yes, he is indeed mocking them, because they are offering sacrifices, bringing all these things, not in the way the Almighty commanded them. Their hearts are far away from the command. They are not keeping it. So remember what King Jeroboam did to cause the northern kingdom of Israel to transgress? Do you remember that? Now, according to 1 Kings chapter 12 from verse 28 to 30, King Jeroboam made 2 golden calves and placed one in Bethel in the north and the other in Dan in the southern part of the northern kingdom, declaring, "Here are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." Now, end quote. So the prophet Amos is recounting the transgressions of Israel in this passage. They do not offer right sacrifices because they bring even the third tithes at the right time, but not with the right spirit. If we go to Malachi chapter 3, verse 8 to 10, we talked about that last week. I'm not going to read the whole quotation. Malachi was rebuking the people of Israel, where the Almighty spoke through Malachi. Will a man rob Elohim? Will a man rob God Almighty? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. So read the rest, and there was a curse on them because they were not keeping this commandment. And the Most High said, if they return and do the right thing, he will bless them in such a way that they will not, they cannot contain the blessings he will send them. Okay, so the Tanakh provides responses to the following questions we pose. Who should pay tithes? Well, everyone, the Israelite landowners, everybody in Israel owned lands, apart from the Levites who were given portions where to stay, especially in the places of refuge. They had lands to work, but their lands are not as huge as the rest of them. Okay, so landowners and herdsmen, planters, farmers who plant grains, fruits, and livestock, under the covenant. Everyone is supposed to tithe, apart from the lineage of Aaron. Okay, so how should they tithe? You pay the first tithe to the Levites who serve in the sanctuary. Okay, then the Levites will tithe to Aaronic priest. Then we come to the second tithe. This is brought to the sanctuary during the feast period and consumed in worship by the family before YAHAWAH. Now the third tithe is stored locally for Levites and the poor. Okay, so yearly on harvest and herd increase every third year for the poor, the tithe is brought by the people. Okay, now what does the New Testament have to say about tithing? I'm trying to catch up with the time. I don't have much time remaining. Here are some direct references to tithing by Yahawashi himself. In Matthew 23, verse 23, and in Luke chapter 11, verse 42, Yahawashi rebukes the Pharisees for meticulous tithing of mint, dill, and cumin, okay, while neglecting justice, mercy, and faithfulness. He says, these you ought to have done without leaving the others undone. So, do the right thing. He didn't condemn or abolish tithing. Remember that, because he told us something in Matthew chapter 5 from verse 17. I have not come to abolish the law or mess with the prophets. In Hebrews chapter 7, the Apostle Paul and Lucius, as I said above, interpret Abraham's tithe to Melchizedek to show the superiority of Messiah's priesthood, not to impose a new tithe law on believers. Now, this is their interpretation. It's not a command from Yahawashi. Okay? Actually, those of us now that are in the priesthood of Jesus Christ, the Melchizedekite priesthood, remember, we are a nation of priests, according to Peter, according to Paul, and according to John. John, in the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 5 and 6, he said, he has made us kings and priests. So, should a priest disobey the commandments of the Almighty? No. So, in the New Testament, in all honesty, there is the giving principles. Christ doesn't condemn tithing. So, also, we have in Matthew chapter 10, verse 10 and Luke chapter 10, verse 7, the worker, says Yahawashi, is worthy of his food or wages. Okay? So, again, Yahawashi did not give a contrary commandment in this teaching. 1 Corinthians 9, from 7 to 14, you can read that up. Paul argues that those who preach the gospel should live from the gospel, drawing analogies from temple service, but emphasizing rights rather than a fixed tenth. Okay? Again, interpretation of scholars. So, but the Almighty already gave commandments as how we should deal with his workers in his tabernacle, how they should be compensated. Romans chapter 15, verse 27, Gentile believers share material things with Hebrew believers. That's fine, because they get spiritual knowledge, spiritual wisdom, and spiritual gifts from the priests of the Almighty in the Melchizedekite order. Now, community sharing and generosity is, proclaimed all over. If we go to Acts chapter 2, 44 to 45 and Acts chapter 4, 32 to 37, believers sell possessions and lands and lay the proceeds at the apostles' feet. Distribution is made to any who had need. We understand that. 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 9, or chapter 8 to 9 actually, the teaching of Paul is that giving should be grace-motivated, cheerful, and proportional giving. Paul teaches about cheerful giving in direct reference to Exodus chapter 25, verse 1 and 2, where YAHAWAH said, Speak unto the children of Israel that they bring me an offering of every man that giveth it willingly with his heart. Ye shall take my offering. So the New Testament says that giving is not, they're not kind of giving a formal tithe command for the Natzrim. Instead, it calls all believers to systematic, generous support of ministers and the poor. Okay? There was no need to formalize it since the Hebrews already understood the laws of giving to the servants of YAHAWAH, and the Apostolic Council in Jerusalem clearly wrote in Acts chapter 15 from verse 20 to 21, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols and from fornication and from things strangled and from blood. For Moses of old have in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath day. This means to say that it was common knowledge, tithing was common knowledge even in those days of the apostles and in the time of Jesus Christ. Okay, so the apostles, after Christ died, were saying, let them not do certain wickedness, worship idols, fornicate, and strangle animals and drink blood. That's not commanded. But that they should understand what they hear every Sabbath in every city. Okay, so through offerings to apostles and elders, traveling workers, and needy brethren, the clarity is let the believers support these brothers. Okay, money and goods are laid at the apostles' feet, as we read already in Acts chapter 4:35, then distributed according to need. Okay, so, and how frequently? They are to bring these offerings regularly. That is the urgency of the matter. In 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 2, Paul says, on the first day of every week, each of you is to put something aside, as he may prosper, as the Almighty may have given to you, put something aside. It is urgent. The work of the Most High needs money, needs help, needs food. You have to feed the people that are working for the Most High. So after Christ resurrected in AD 70, the apostles didn't emphasize tithing as fundraising. They didn't. That's what we have been doing all along in this section. Please visit my Facebook page so that you can read up all the details, see all the documents, the legislations of tithing and offerings by the apostles. Okay, so I'm going to be concluding very quickly with a few information on modern tithers and testimonies. Okay, so we do the first and maybe the last testimonies, so that from that you can learn that even today in our generation, people are still tithing. So don't miss out on that. Testimony number one, a healthcare professional, that's a Natzrim leaning nurse in the Midwest, burdened by student loans and medical bills. What did she do? She commits to tithing 10% of her net income and giving additional offerings to a local benevolence fund. Outcome, over 2 years, unexpected scholarship pays off remaining student debt. A side consulting opportunity doubles her income. She testifies, when I treated my paycheck as seed and not survival, reordered my finances and my heart. The second testimony is from Europe. It's a small Natzrim fellowship renting a tiny hall, struggling to cover costs. They took the action to tithe again, and the result was that the Almighty blessed them. Okay, so they helped people who were struggling to pay their house rent. The Almighty honored them and blessed them. Okay, now let's take the next one, the testimony scene. This is about a tech entrepreneur, a believer running a startup industry facing volatile revenue. So action, he sets a rule for all his workers. First 10% of every contract goes to kingdom work. He also mentors youth for free. Over 3 years, the company stabilizes. He lands a long-term contract with a major client. What did he confess? He says, tithing taught me that my business is Yah's project, not mine. Now, The next one is the retired couple, a couple in the Natzrim community again, who were living on fixed income. So, but they tithe their pensions and give food parcels monthly to the poor, people that are poorer than themselves. What is the outcome? Their health expenses are unexpectedly covered through community programs. They experience deep joy and spiritual vitality. And this is what they said. We thought we were too old to sow seed. Yah showed us that generosity never retires. Final one. This is an Igbo insurance investigator based in Nigeria who struggled with his business expansion in the United States. What action did he take? He prayed and had a revelation about specific tithing format. Outcome, he began to give his tithes, which he spread out to several congregations to support their ministries. His business blossomed. He received documents to expand his business into the USA and other countries. He says, my testimonies are testimonies of Yah's hand in my life. And he quoted 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9. Yah is not slack concerning his promise. My brothers, I'm going to do the book 3 next week in 2 days. And please visit my Facebook account and get all the information. Yahawaha bless you and keep you. Yahawaha make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahawaha lift his holy face upon you and give you peace. Amen. Shalom.